Hi, we're back. We're going to be talking with, joining Ellie once again. We're talking about what makes a good person to work in healthcare. Porque para mí, caring for the elderly, necesita uno mucho corazón. You gotta have a lot of heart.
You definitely do. Still, let me finish what my point was. You know, many patients come from the hospital setting. They have been ill, they've been taken there after an emergency at home, whatever, and all of a sudden the doctor, the hospital people are telling this family member, your mom, your dad needs to go to a nursing home. And let me tell you something, they tell them this patient is going to be discharged tomorrow or today.
So they have 24 hours? Oh, lovely.
Or sometimes not even 24 hours, sometimes that afternoon.
Wow.
So that's when it's challenging.
And do you receive hospital orders or some sort of, you know, a schedule of what they need? I mean, I imagine you're there and ready.
Any resident that comes into a skilled nursing facility has to be under the care of a physician. So the physician orders are the standard of care to admit the resident into the facility to begin with. So if you don't have a physician following the patient, we can't accept them into the facility. So that's the first step in that process. And unfortunately, I guess adding to what Ellie's issue is that it's sprung on the families right away. They don't even have time to discuss it among themselves, let alone have to go find a place and figure out what's important to them. And then many times we find that physicians don't even follow into the skilled nursing setting, that a physician has to then be assigned. So you lose the continuity of care that creates a problem for physician oversight.
Although sometimes the family with, say, an Alzheimer's patient or someone who has dementia reaches their ropes and does have time to really research it. If it's an acute problem, such as a hip or a stroke, then they do go directly. But sometimes a family member has worked for a long time with this patient and they just can't do it anymore. They can't keep up with all the stress and cope with all that it takes to take care of this loved one. And then those people can actually research and should do the research.
Right. I agree 100%.
And I wanted to add one other thing about what to look for in a nursing home is use your sight and use your smell. Does it smell clean, or does it smell like an institution?
Smell a little strange.
Absolutely,
here.
that's a really good indication of how clean this facility is.
Really?
And see, are the patients?
The nose knows.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you need
also
to make sure
staff-resident interactions.
Yes.
You know, do staff members just walk by somebody, or are they interacting with the person?
Is everybody lined up in the hallway doing nothing?
Yeah, and you know your family member better than anybody else, even the physician and the social workers who work with you. And you know what this resident needs to be comfortable, to be happy. One situation, it happens to me all the time, happens in my facilities. Most of the patients that we admit from the hospitals, again, families do not come to the facility after the patient has been admitted. Now, we do a good job as far as assessing the resident before it comes to the facility. And if we find that we cannot take care of that resident because of the diagnosis, because of the patient's needs, we will tell the hospital, we're very sorry, you know, we cannot meet the needs of this resident. And then we refer them to other facilities. Not every nursing home provider will do that.
I want to pick up on something Ellie said, which I think is critical. Familias have also a responsibility to go into the nursing home and to visit. Because
is there a problem with big familias coming? Like,
I've
we used to
never
go
had
visit my tia Maria, and it was like, well, 15 of us are coming over.
You know, I've never had a problem. My mother, before I got in the car to come here, she said, you know, don't tell them that, you know, I almost became part of the activity program at the nursing homes wherever my grandmother had stayed, because, you know, she went so often that the activity coordinators knew her very well. And so, but I think that makes a big difference, even when it's sprung on you, because we've had that experience as well. And your presence there has a great deal to do with explaining to people whether it's an illness. My grandmother post-stroke, they couldn't tell whether it was her temper was a relation of the stroke, or was it always been like that. And we could tell them that it had always been that way. It was always a carácter fuerte.
I think to add on that is, you know, being a nursing home administrator myself for many years, is we explain.
You come from 3 generations of nursing homes?
3 generations. We explain to families, you need to be part of an active role of the care that is delivered in the facility.
Drop them off.
Just don't drop them off and disappear. We say to them, you have known them your whole life. You're going to know their innuendos. You're going to know their intricacies. If you see a slight change,
and they'll tell you things
that we may not, to help us. And not only that, you know, family is an emotional unit that gives strength in many peculiar ways. And to break. Well, not peculiar.
No, I'm kidding.
I don't mean peculiar, but specific ways. It's very important. Right. And I think that when family involvement, and you see it, I think we've all seen it in nursing facilities, when the family is there and involved, the patient does better.
Very
Clearly.
Yeah.
What about those who don't have family?
Well, that's also important, and that's where the residents and the facility need to be matched up for similarities, and then that's the staff needs to rise to the occasion and adopt them and really treat them as one of their own.
Can we talk about money now? Because I know that one of the reasons I believe that Latinos probably don't engage in nursing homes is because you have to have a certain amount of money in order to find. Do you have to pay a lot of money to find a good nursing home? You were saying like you've got to pay your staff. You've got to have a staff that is happy to be there, that is being compensated financially. What do you think about the situation with someone who's middle class and now has a parent that has to go into perhaps an expensive proposition?
Depending on how long that person lives, it's not going to last long. And then that person will then go on Medi-Cal, which is a state welfare program.
But there are very strict parameters to that, correct?
Right, and not all facilities accept Medi-Cal. And I feel there's a huge discrepancy, you may feel differently, between those Medi-Cal patients and those non-Medi-Cal
Is there?
patients.
Let's put that out there.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
In our facilities,
No,
we run
Maybe not.
25 facilities, and no, everybody's treated the same. There's no distinction because
It's not a class difference. We're
No,
talking about a
because
class financially.
you could have had one person in your facility that had the funds for a year and just went through them and now have to go onto the welfare system. You're not going to all of a sudden treat them differently because now
But
they
you've
have to.
seen-
But don't you think that in some facilities that is true? Maybe not in your particular cases, but in some facilities that is definitely true.
Well, I think the whole reimbursement issue is something to be looked at when you're paying minimum wage to nursing assistants who are the backbone of the facility. You know, it becomes very difficult to staff the facility at a level. You know, staffing is being met by minimum requirements, but in order to get quality people, you know, the choice is, would you rather work in a nursing facility, which is very difficult work, or would you rather work in a McDonald's?
What is a good activities? What should I be seeing when I go into the nursing home? What means it's healthy? What sort of activities are we going to be
I
seeing?
think clients need to be out of their beds. I think Kathy said that earlier. When you see a lot of patients in their beds with not a lot to do but staring blankly at a television sometimes, which is what happens.
Which is what I do.
Many of us do that. But again,
I'm
you're
having
looking
fun
at,
now.
you know, I've seen facilities where they have cooking classes, craft classes, like I told you, salsa dancing, horticulture.
Really?
You know, they bring pets in because again, that may be also something that's important to older people who've always had small pets, etc. To bring them in.
Oh, you can have pets?
Yes.
You
Yeah,
can't.
definitely.
Sometimes they are brought in also for activities.
And many facilities actually have pets as part of the
Yeah.
resident population,
Yeah,
so
so-
they get adopted by the residents.
We
We'll
have
be
a-
back with more on elder care here on Café California. So can you have like a goldfish and a frog?
Absolutely. You can have your cat live there.
Yeah.
Really?
Some
Yeah,
facilities,
Actually,
yeah.
we have residents who have brought cats.